This prophecy reveals the nation the Antichrist might come from. What if I told you that buried within the pages of ancient prophecy lies a code? A code that reveals exactly where the most feared figure in human history will emerge from. You're about to discover something that biblical scholars have debated for centuries, but here's what they don't want you to know. The clues have been hiding in plain sight all along. But first, let me show you something that will make your skin crawl. Picture this. It's 553 BC. The most powerful empire in the world has just conquered your homeland. You're in exile, a prisoner in a foreign land. And then you have a dream that will haunt humanity for the next 2.5 millennia. This man's name was Daniel, and what he saw in that vision would become the roadmap for identifying the Antichrist's origin. But here's the part that will blow your mind. Daniel didn't just see one vision, he saw multiple visions, and when you piece them together, and I mean really piece them together, they point to a specific geographic region with laser-like precision. We'll show you exactly how in just a moment. But first, you need to understand what Daniel actually saw, because this is where our investigation begins. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head while on his bed. Then he wrote down the dream, telling the main facts. Daniel spoke, saying, "I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the 4 winds of heaven were stirring up the great sea, and 4 great beasts came up from the sea, each different from the other." Now, most people think they understand what Daniel saw. They think it's just symbolic. But what if I told you that every single detail in this vision corresponds to actual historical empires, and that the final beast contains a hidden clue about modern geography? But Daniel's vision gets even more specific. He saw something that modern scholars are just beginning to understand. I was considering the horns, and there was another horn, a little one, coming up among them, before whom 3 of the first horns were plucked out by the roots. And there, in this horn, were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking pompous words. That little horn is the Antichrist. And Daniel just told us he'll emerge from among the other horns, but here's what will shock you. The identity of those other horns points to a specific region of the world, and when you understand which region, everything else falls into place. I'm going to reveal that region to you, but first, you need to see how Daniel's vision connects to an even more terrifying prophecy. Fast forward 650 years, another exile, another vision, but this time the dreamer is John, and he's trapped on a prison island called Patmos. The Roman Empire has exiled him here to die, but instead of dying, he sees something that will make Daniel's vision look like a warm-up act. And here's the connection that most people miss. John's vision doesn't replace Daniel's vision, it completes it. And when you understand how these 2 visions fit together, you'll have the key to unlocking the Antichrist's origin. Then I stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rising up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his horns 10 crowns, and on his heads a blasphemous name. Notice something familiar? John sees his beast rising from the sea too. But John gives us additional details that Daniel didn't include. Here's where it gets really interesting. Some believe the 7 heads in John's vision represent 7 successive empires. 5 had already fallen by John's time, 1 was currently ruling, that's Rome, and 1 was yet to come. But the beast itself represents an eighth empire that emerges from the seven. This is the key to understanding the Antichrist's political origin. Because of this, many believe the Antichrist won't create a new empire from scratch. He'll emerge from the remains of previous empires. And when you identify which empires John was referring to, you can pinpoint exactly which modern nations could produce the Antichrist. In just a few minutes, I'm going to show you the shocking list of those seven empires, and you'll immediately recognize why three modern nations rise above all others as candidates. And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God to blaspheme his name, his tabernacle, and those who dwell in heaven. It was granted to him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. And authority was given him over every tribe, tongue, and nation. Global authority, complete control. But here's the question that will determine your future. How do you gain control over every nation on earth? The answer lies in geography, and I'm about to show you why location is everything when it comes to world domination. For nearly 2,000 years, biblical scholars have been convinced they knew the answer. Rome, the eternal city, the empire that crucified Christ and scattered the Jews. It had to be Rome. And I'll be honest with you, their evidence is compelling, so compelling that we almost stopped our investigation right here. But then I discovered something that changes everything. When Daniel spoke of the fourth beast, he described it as dreadful and terrible, exceedingly strong. The Hebrew words he used specifically indicate crushing power and iron strength. This perfectly describes Rome's military machinery and legal system. Rome conquered the known world. Rome perfected the art of crucifixion. Rome destroyed Jerusalem in 70 AD, exactly as Jesus predicted. But here's where the Roman theory gets really interesting. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. But in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. And for the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate, even until the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. This is Daniel's 70th week prophecy. The Antichrist will confirm a covenant, a peace treaty with Israel. But notice the phrase, he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. This means the Jewish temple must be rebuilt before the Antichrist can desecrate it. And guess what? Plans for rebuilding that temple are already underway. But I'll show you those shocking details in just a moment. First, let me show you why modern Rome, the European Union, might be the prophetic fulfillment everyone's been waiting for. The EU has exactly the same geographical footprint as the old Roman Empire. It's a revival of Roman power, just as the prophecies predicted. The European Union represents the most successful attempt at unifying Europe since the Roman Empire. It has its own currency, its own laws, its own military forces. It's essentially a modern version of Imperial Rome. The EU isn't just similar to Rome, it's the continuation of Rome. But when will he arrive? He's not coming at random. He's not hiding in the shadows forever. He's waiting for one specific moment, and that moment is almost here. Right now, the world is racing toward a global crisis. Wars, collapses, technology merging with human control. Peace talks are heating up. Israel is surrounded by tension. And the whole world is crying out for one thing, a leader who can fix it all. He shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. Daniel 9:27. That's the signal. A peace agreement. That's when the Antichrist arrives on the scene, not as a villain, but as a hero. If the Antichrist rises at the moment of peace, could the current peace talks already be part of the setup? He won't come with fangs or fire. He'll come with charisma and contracts. If you don't recognize him when he rises, you might follow him without knowing it. Let's get to the timeline. The Bible gives us a clear window when the Antichrist steps into power. Daniel 9:27 tells us he'll confirm a covenant with many for 1 week. That week in prophecy means 7 years, the final 7 years before Jesus returns. And the Antichrist's arrival marks the start of that countdown. That means when you see a peace deal involving Israel and many nations, that begins the final 7 years. That's when the Antichrist officially comes onto the world stage. First, the peace treaty, then the deception, then the destruction. He won't look like a monster. He'll look like the answer to everyone's prayers. Once the 7 years begin, the first half, 3.5 years, will seem peaceful. By peace, he shall destroy many. Daniel 8:25. The Antichrist will help stabilize economies. He'll bring enemies together. He may even help rebuild the Jewish temple. And people will say, finally, we have peace. But it's a trap. It's a setup for the second half, the time Jesus called the Great Tribulation. When the world celebrates peace, the enemy prepares war. Some rabbis in Israel are already discussing plans for a third temple. The furniture is built. The priestly garments are made. They're just waiting for the green light. The Antichrist's peace will feel like salvation until it turns into enslavement. Halfway through the 7 years, at the 3.5-year mark, something changes. The Antichrist drops the mask. In the midst of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. Daniel 9:27. He stops the temple sacrifices. Then, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. 2 Thessalonians 2:4. This is the abomination of desolation. It happens at the exact middle of the 7 years. That's the point when it all falls apart. And that's when the world sees his true face. He signs peace. He gains power. He enters the temple. Then he demands worship. The one they praised becomes the one they fear. From that midpoint to the end of the 7 years, the world enters the Great Tribulation. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world. Matthew 24:21. During this time, the Antichrist enforces the mark of the beast. Those who refuse it can't buy or sell. Believers are hunted. Satan is unleashed through this man. And the entire planet feels the weight of prophecy. Could the technology for the mark already exist? Are we closer to that 3.5-year point than we realize? Microchip implants, global digital ID systems, and AI surveillance have all been rolled out in recent years. The tools for control already exist. They're just waiting for a crisis and a leader. The second half of the 7 years isn't just about control, it's about the final war for the human soul. This isn't science fiction, this is the Bible's final warning, and you need to be ready before the countdown starts. After he breaks the covenant, the Antichrist sets up the abomination of desolation. He enters the temple. He stops the daily sacrifices. He demands worship. He unleashes persecution on anyone who refuses his mark. It was given unto him to make war with the saints. Revelation 13:7. And for a time, it looks like he's winning. Churches close. Believers hide. The beast speaks loud and the world listens. But then, trumpets sound. seals break, bowls pour out, heaven starts moving, and earth starts falling apart. He may rule for a moment, but heaven rules forever. Will anyone stop him? Is there any power strong enough to break the beast? Yes, and he's on his way. The Antichrist gathers the nations at Armageddon. They're ready to destroy Jerusalem, ready to wipe out God's people once and for all. But suddenly, the sky cracks open. I saw heaven opened, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True. Revelation 19:11. Jesus returns with eyes like fire, with a sword from his mouth, and with the armies of heaven behind him. The Antichrist looks up, and his time runs out. The beast who terrified the world now trembles. The Bible never says Jesus fights the Antichrist with weapons. He destroys him with his words. The Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth. 2 Thessalonians 2:8. One word from Jesus, and the Antichrist falls. Jesus doesn't need missiles. He doesn't need tanks. He speaks, and the beast's armies collapse. The skies darken. The earth shakes. The Mount of Olives splits, and the throne of the Antichrist turns to dust. The beast was taken, and with him the false prophet. Revelation 19:20. They're not put in prison. They're not given a second chance. They're thrown alive into the lake of fire. No trial, no mercy, just eternal judgment. The world's last tyrant becomes heaven's first target. What about Satan? If the Antichrist is destroyed, what happens to the one who gave him power? After the Antichrist is cast into the lake of fire, the Bible says, "And he laid hold on the dragon, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years." Revelation 20, verse 2. The deceiver is chained. He is shut up in the abyss. He can no longer accuse, no longer whisper lies, no longer rule. Jesus begins to reign, and the saints reign with him. For 1,000 years, peace fills the earth. The kingdom of the beast is gone. The kingdom of Christ is here. The false king is judged. The serpent is bound. The real king takes the throne. If you follow the beast, you fall with him. But if you follow Jesus, you reign with him. The lake of fire is permanent. Even after the 1,000 years, the Antichrist is still there, burning. He is never released. He never escapes. His judgment is eternal. So what does this mean for you? Why does this matter? Because the spirit of the Antichrist is already here. Even before the man rises, the deception is rising. False peace, false signs, false worship. The beast is coming. But you still have time to choose. If any man worship the beast, he shall drink of the wrath of God. Revelation 14:9. This isn't just a prophecy, it's a warning. The world will embrace the beast, but only the wise will escape him. How close are we? Is the Antichrist alive today? Have the final events already begun? Here's the truth. You don't have to fear the beast. You don't have to fear what's coming, but you do have to be ready. Because the only way to escape the mark is to be sealed by Jesus. The only way to stand in the battle is to kneel before the King now. The only way to survive the end is to surrender before it begins. You've seen the rise. You've seen the fall. Now it's time to decide where you stand. You're either with Christ or with the Antichrist. There is no middle. So now you know. The Antichrist may rise, But his end is certain. Jesus will return. He will reign. The beast will burn, and every eye will see the truth. And the beast was taken and cast alive into a lake of fire burning with brimstone. Revelation 19:20. The world is already preparing for a false king, but heaven is preparing for the real one. Don't be deceived by the fake. Don't be caught off guard. The end of the Antichrist means the beginning of the kingdom.
Many seem to be confused because they do not understand the book of Revelation. However, what if there was an animation showing the entire book? Well, we created that. And to watch that, click here.